Ladies and gentlemen, authenticity is discovery, not addition. Too often, people believe that becoming their true self is a process of building, of layering on new habits, new appearances, new qualities, as though they must construct their identity like a tower. But the truth is far more subtle and far more profound. The self we seek is not something that must be manufactured. It already exists within us, quietly waiting to be uncovered. What prevents us from experiencing it is not a lack of qualities, but the layers of masks, expectations, and defenses we have placed upon ourselves. To be authentic is not to become more, but to become less burdened by the falsehoods that conceal our essence. From the earliest years of life, we begin to wear masks. As children, we sense what brings approval and what brings rejection. We learn to emphasize certain parts of ourselves and to hide others. We begin to act in ways that secure belonging, for survival depends on acceptance. This is not weakness. It is the natural response of the human spirit. Yet over time, those masks harden, and we start to believe they are who we really are. The laughter we force, the roles we adopt, the opinions we inherit, all these layers cover the deeper truth of the self that quietly whispers beneath. Authenticity begins when we realize that these masks, though protective, are not the sum of who we are. Discovery means peeling back these layers. It means noticing when the voice we speak with is not our own but one borrowed from the expectations of others. It means recognizing when our dreams are not born of desire but of duty. It means observing when our choices serve image rather than soul. This process is not about creating something new, but about listening deeply to the faint but persistent call within us that has always been there. That voice may be small, but it is steady, and it grows louder when we dare to listen. The journey of authenticity is not glamorous at first. It demands courage because it requires us to face truths that may be uncomfortable. Many of us prefer the comfort of our masks. They protect us from judgment and shield us from rejection, but in protecting us, they also imprison us. They keep us safe, yes, but at the cost of our freedom. To step into authenticity is to risk being seen, fully and completely. And to be seen means to be vulnerable, but it is only in that vulnerability that real strength is born. The discovery of the self is like uncovering a sculpture hidden beneath layers of stone. The sculptor does not create the figure by adding pieces of marble. Instead, he chips away at everything that is not essential. In the same way, authenticity is a subtractive process. It is about removing the unnecessary, the artificial, the imposed. What remains when all that is false has been stripped away is not emptiness. It is the essence of who we truly are. This discovery is not a one-time event, but a lifelong unfolding. Every stage of life presents us with new masks, new roles, and new temptations to stray from our core. At work, we may shape ourselves into what we believe will lead to success. In relationships, we may hide parts of ourselves we fear are unlovable. In society, we may conform to ideals that promise acceptance. Yet at every stage, the question remains, are we living as ourselves, or as the version others expect of us? The discovery of authenticity requires constant attention, a willingness to pause and reflect, to ask whether the path we are on truly belongs to us. When we begin to live authentically, something remarkable happens. Our energy changes. The endless struggle of pretending, of keeping up appearances, of wearing a mask that doesn't fit. It begins to fade. Life becomes lighter because we no longer fight against ourselves. There is a natural flow that comes with alignment, a sense that even difficulties can be met with resilience because we are no longer fractured within. People often search for freedom in wealth, recognition, or power, but the deepest freedom is found when we no longer betray ourselves. The beauty of this discovery is that it radiates outward. When you live authentically, you inspire others to question the masks they wear. Your courage becomes a mirror in which they see their own hidden selves. Authenticity is contagious not because it preaches, but because it resonates. It awakens something in others that they too have long buried. And in that way, one person's discovery becomes a spark that lights countless others. Ladies and gentlemen, authenticity is discovery, not addition. The true self is not something to be built or borrowed. It is something to be uncovered. It is not about becoming more, it is about becoming real. And when you dare to peel away the falsehoods, when you risk being seen as you truly are, you do not diminish yourself. You reveal a depth, a wholeness, and a power that has always been waiting within you. Wholeness requires embracing the shadow. Within every human being lies a side that is often hidden, denied, or pushed away into the corners of the unconscious. These are the thoughts we do not want to admit, the feelings we suppress, and the impulses we believe are too dark to show. Yet no matter how far we attempt to bury them, they remain part of us. And here lies the paradox. The very parts of ourselves we fear the most are also the key to our completeness. To reject them is to remain divided. To embrace them is to become whole. The shadow does not only contain darkness. It is not simply the destructive or shameful elements of human nature. It also holds the rejected strengths, the forgotten talents, and the unlived possibilities of our lives. When we deny our anger, we may also deny our passion. When we silence our sadness, we may also silence our depth. When we ignore our flaws, we may also ignore the humanity that makes us real. The shadow is not an enemy, it is a reservoir of energy that, if faced, can transform us. Many of us are taught from an early age to present only what is acceptable. We learn to smile even when we feel sorrow, to obey even when we feel resistance, to hide what does not fit into the image others expect. Slowly, a gap forms between the self we show and the self we hide. On the surface, we may appear polished, controlled, and strong, but beneath, the shadow waits. And if we never face it, it leaks out in subtle ways, in sudden bursts of anger, in envy we cannot explain, in anxiety that seems to have no cause. What we refuse to confront within ourselves often controls us the most. Embracing the shadow does not mean indulging in destructive impulses. It means acknowledging them, understanding their roots, and integrating them into a balanced life. If one denies anger completely, it may erupt in uncontrolled rage. But if one accepts anger as a signal, an indication of boundaries being crossed, it becomes a guide, not a threat. If one denies fear, it festers in the dark and shapes choices in silence. But if one accepts fear as part of the human experience, it can teach caution without paralyzing the spirit. Integration transforms poison into medicine. The journey to wholeness requires honesty, a willingness to look into the mirror without flinching. It means asking, what am I running from in myself? What traits in others trigger me? Perhaps because they reflect something within me I refuse to see. Often, the people we dislike the most reveal qualities of our own shadow. Their presence irritates us because they awaken a hidden resemblance. To recognize this is not easy. It requires humility and courage. Yet it is in this recognition that we gain freedom, because we are no longer at war with ourselves. Imagine the self as a great house. To live authentically, one cannot inhabit only the brightly lit rooms and lock the doors to the rest. The dark rooms must be opened as well, explored and understood. Only then does the house feel whole. If you leave parts of the house unvisited, they do not disappear. They wait, gathering power in silence. The shadow is the same. By entering the dark rooms of our being, we discover treasures hidden beneath the dust. We uncover resilience, creativity, and wisdom born from struggle. Wholeness is not perfection. It is not the elimination of flaws or the polishing of personality until nothing messy remains. Wholeness is the acceptance of complexity, the ability to hold both light and shadow, strength and weakness, joy and sorrow, without rejecting either. It is to say, I am not only my virtues, nor only my faults, but a living harmony of both. And in that harmony lies authenticity, power, and peace. When we embrace the shadow, relationships also transform. We no longer demand perfection from others because we no longer demand it from ourselves. We learn compassion because we recognize that everyone carries hidden struggles. We become less quick to judge and more willing to understand. In this way, embracing the shadow does not only heal the individual, it ripples outward, softening the hardness of the world around us. Ladies and gentlemen, to embrace the shadow is to walk into the depths of the self with courage. It is to discover that the darkness we fear is not meant to destroy us, but to complete us. Wholeness is found not in denying what we are, but in accepting it fully. The light shines brightest not when it banishes the dark, but when it learns to coexist with it. And when we learn this truth, we step into a life that is not divided but whole, not fractured but real. Freedom comes from inner alignment. Human beings often search for freedom in the outer world, in wealth, in status, in the ability to travel wherever they please, or in the power to live without restriction. But no matter how many doors are open in the external world, if the inner world is in conflict, true freedom remains elusive. Real liberation is not the absence of limitations outside of us, but the presence of harmony within us. It is born when the mind, the heart, and the spirit move in the same direction, when the self no longer battles against itself, but walks as one. Many people live as if divided. Their words say one thing, their actions another, and their inner feelings something else entirely. They wear smiles while their hearts ache. They pursue goals that do not resonate with their soul. They chase recognition while their deeper being longs for peace. This division is a silent prison. It ties the individual to a life of contradiction, where nothing feels whole, no matter how successful it appears. The truth is simple. One cannot feel free while living in conflict with one's own essence. Inner alignment means living in accordance with your values, your truth, and your authentic desires. It is not about perfection, nor is it about meeting every expectation placed upon you. Rather, it is about finding that center where thought, feeling, and action are connected. When what you believe aligns with how you live, and when your choices reflect who you truly are, a deep sense of freedom arises. You no longer feel the need to constantly perform, to constantly defend, or to constantly seek validation. You are at home within yourself. This does not mean that external difficulties vanish. Life will still present struggles, setbacks, and obstacles. But when there is inner alignment, those struggles do not shatter you, because you are not at war with yourself. The greatest suffering often comes not from outer events, but from inner division. The endless questioning, the feeling of betrayal toward one's own truth, the silence of ignoring the self. When you are aligned, even hardship feels purposeful. You can endure storms without losing your ground because your foundation is steady. The journey toward inner alignment requires honesty. It demands that we look at our lives and ask, am I living in harmony with what I believe? Do my choices reflect my deeper values, or are they shaped only by fear, comparison, or desire for approval? Many discover that their daily lives are filled with compromises that silently suffocate their spirit. They remain in jobs that betray their creativity, relationships that deny their truth, or roles that silence their voice. The longer one lives in this dissonance, the heavier the burden becomes. But the moment a person chooses alignment, even in small steps, they begin to feel free. Speaking a truth instead of staying silent, choosing a path that resonates with the heart instead of following the crowd, setting boundaries where once there were none. Each act of alignment restores a piece of freedom. It is not always easy. To align within often means to disappoint expectations outside, yet to live constantly pleasing others is to live in chains. True freedom is not found in never being criticized, but in no longer betraying oneself. Inner alignment also brings clarity. When the self is divided, decisions feel heavy and confusing, as though no choice is ever right. But when the self is aligned, choices become clear because they are guided from within. The noise of comparison and the pressure of outside voices grow weaker. You no longer feel lost in the endless maze of opinions because you have found your compass, and that compass points not outward, but inward. What emerges from this alignment is peace, not the fragile peace of quiet circumstances, but the enduring peace of an undivided soul. You no longer live in fragments, pretending in one place and hiding in another. You no longer exhaust yourself with masks or false roles. Instead, there is simplicity, a natural ease that allows you to live fully present. That is freedom, the ability to walk through the world without betraying yourself, to face both joy and pain with authenticity, to know that you are whole within, regardless of what lies outside. Ladies and gentlemen, freedom comes not from what the world grants, but from what the soul allows. When the self is aligned, when the inner world moves as one, no external chain can bind you, for the greatest liberty is not the power to do as you wish, but the strength to be as you truly are. Courage over perfection. This is a truth many resist, yet it carries the power to reshape how we live and how we grow. From childhood, we are taught to aim for perfection, perfect grades, perfect behavior, perfect appearances, perfect results. Society rewards the polished, the flawless, the unblemished. Yet, perfection is an illusion, an unreachable standard that constantly shifts the more we pursue it. It lures us with the promise of acceptance, but in reality, it robs us of peace. Perfection paralyzes, while courage liberates. Courage is the act of moving forward despite imperfection. It is the willingness to try even when failure is possible, to speak even when the voice trembles, to step into the unknown without guarantees. Unlike perfection, which demands certainty and control, courage thrives in uncertainty. It says, I may not have all the answers, I may not be flawless, but I will act anyway. And in that act, something powerful awakens. The human spirit becomes alive. Perfection creates fear, fear of mistakes, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. It makes us cautious to the point of stagnation, endlessly preparing but never beginning, endlessly editing but never sharing, endlessly rehearsing but never living. The tragedy of perfectionism is that it silences potential. It convinces us that unless we are guaranteed success, we should not even try. But life does not unfold in guarantees. Life demands courage, the courage to be vulnerable, to be seen as incomplete, to grow through failure instead of avoiding it. When we choose courage over perfection, we begin to embrace authenticity. Perfection is a mask. It hides flaws and presents only what appears acceptable. But courage reveals truth. It shows the world who we are, not just who we pretend to be, and in truth there is strength. People do not connect with perfection, they connect with honesty. They do not admire flawless masks, they resonate with stories of struggle, resilience, and imperfection that mirror their own. Courage allows us to be human, and humanity is far more powerful than any illusion of perfection. The path of courage is not easy. It requires us to stand in uncertainty, to risk criticism, and to accept failure as part of growth. Yet it is through courage that true progress is made. Every invention, every art form, every movement of change began not with perfection, but with bravery. The great thinkers, creators, and leaders of history were not perfect beings. They were individuals who dared. They dared to imagine differently, to step beyond what was safe, to face ridicule and still continue. Their courage carried them where perfection never could. Courage also transforms how we see ourselves. Instead of measuring worth by flawless outcomes, we begin to value effort, persistence, and growth. We learn to celebrate small victories, to honor the process instead of obsessing over the result. Mistakes become teachers rather than enemies, and failure becomes a stepping stone rather than a wall. This shift releases us from the prison of impossible standards and allows us to live more fully with openness and joy. Even in relationships, courage proves greater than perfection. To love perfectly is impossible. To never hurt, to never disappoint, to never fail another. But to love courageously is within our reach. It means apologizing when we are wrong, forgiving when we are hurt, and showing up with vulnerability even when trust feels fragile. Relationships thrive not on flawless behavior, but on brave honesty, on the willingness to show imperfections and still remain. The beauty of courage is that it is accessible to everyone. Not one of us can be perfect, yet all of us can be courageous. We can all take the step forward even when afraid. We can all speak our truth even when uncertain of the response. We can all choose action over hesitation. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something matters more than fear. It is the quiet strength to keep going, even when the outcome is unknown. Ladies and gentlemen, Perfection is a horizon that always moves further the closer we get. Courage, however, is within reach here and now. It does not demand flawlessness, only willingness. And it is this willingness that makes life rich, growth possible, and authenticity real. To live courageously is to live fully, while to chase perfection endlessly is to never truly live at all. Perfection may tempt us with promises of acceptance, but it is courage that gives us strength, freedom, and authenticity. It is not in being flawless that we find meaning. It is in daring to be real, daring to try, daring to continue even when fear whispers otherwise. Remember, the world does not need your perfection. It needs your bravery, your truth, and your humanity. So, as you walk forward, do not wait for the perfect moment. Create it with courage,